hard to believe, but 2022. And Happy New Year to everyone. And Trustee Cushman, you really have an exciting and packed full agenda. And was hoping that on today, January 5th, you might start our new year off with our Education and Planning Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. It is a exciting agenda. Unfortunately, I don't have a beautiful fireplace sitting warming my backside. So to call to order the Education and Planning Committee this January 5th at 4:30 p.m. First order of business is to review the December 1st, 2021 committee meeting minutes. Are there any changes, edits, anything that anybody sees that needs to be changed there? Hearing none, we'll move on to the enrollment report. Dr. Urbatus.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. So you have in your packet the winter and spring 2022 enrollment update as of December 17th. And I am going to provide an update as of December 31st, which more accurately reflects where we are at this point in time. So good news about winter. Overall headcount is up 12.8%, and FTE, which is the big number, is up 17.2%. And we were very pleased with these outcomes. As you may know, winter session began on December 26th, I believe, right after Christmas. So I'll stop and ask if you have any questions about that before I move on to spring.
I guess I have one, Carol, if you could maybe talk about what you might think attributes these wonderful numbers in terms of some of the efforts that you and your staff have been up to.
Sure. So the SCP Steering Committee, which has been in existence now for a few years, has had conversations about what types of courses we should be offering that would be attractive to our continuing students, but also non-matriculated students. And those are students who would be attending other institutions who are home and wish to take a course over the winter break. So we have a good course mix, I would say, that is helping in terms of attracting enrollment. But also Kristen Accardi shared with me that she feels that they have finally found the right mix of strategy in terms of reaching our current students, but also non-MAT students. And Dr. Ortloff's area has provided Kristen with a report of students who have previously taken our courses, who attend other institutions. And we did geofencing at some of these institutions in promoting in terms of digital marketing of our winter session. And that seems to have worked, but it's a variety of strategies that marketing has finally hit on that seem to have been a good draw for our winter session this year. And obviously, if FTEs are up 17.2%.
Can you also anticipate some Gemini numbers that are probably too soon right now? In terms
Oh, yes.
Right.
Well, that would be covered in spring. Gemini registrations will start shortly, but we won't see those numbers probably until, well, you won't see them in my report until February.
Great. Fine work. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, for spring, let me move on. So also reflecting December 31st in comparison to December 17th. Excuse me. So on the 17th, the report you received showed that headcount was down 3.1% and FTE was down 2.4%. So as of December 31st, our headcount is up 0.1%. And FTE is flat with last year at 0%, which is a good thing. We've made some inroads there as well. And obviously, we're entering our busy time period for new student registrations as we head towards the start of the semester on January 24th. So the report I provide you in February will pretty much indicate where we are, minus Gemini, a full picture of Gemini, as well as late start classes. So any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abetis. Well done. Kudos to your team, and a shout out to, it sounds like you got support from all over the
It's
all over
across the college. Yes.
That's wonderful news.
It's not just my team. It's a college-wide team effort.
Wonderful and great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to student success report. Dr. Kaiser.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great. I apologize, I'm a little hoarse this evening. I am recovering from a case of COVID and under required isolation, but I am doing rather well, so I'm feeling good about it. It's the benefits of being fully vaccinated, I suppose. So what I want to talk to you tonight about is some information that I've already shared regarding the services we're providing students around mental and medical health and wellness. Prior to COVID, even before COVID, mental health and wellness was already a concern on college campuses. For instance, my first fall here was fall 2018. By fall 2019, our counseling appointments had already doubled between fall 18 and fall 19. Fast forward to March 20, and that has significantly, the COVID epidemic has significantly exacerbated students' mental and physical health needs, as we've talked about before. Many experts, even before COVID struck, many experts thought this increase was due to two reasons. One is students feeling less stigmatized around mental health issues as younger students or adolescents feel more comfortable talking about mental health challenges. And also a second contributing factor, especially for community college students, is this increasing pressure to work, go to school full time, and balance other life necessities. FLCC has already been on the forefront of this by helping combine both our mental and physical health services. So we were already in the process of combining our Office of Student Health with our community standards and counseling into a comprehensive wellness center for students. And we selected a service that reflects that. So this fall, we implemented Timely Care, which provides full wraparound services that are both medical services for students and mental health and wellness services for students. And it's an unusual animal in the marketplace because most services provide one or the other, but not both. It was specifically designed for college students about 5 years ago, and we are using stimulus funds to pay for this service for the next 3 years. And it also aligns with a SUNY requirement that at least 5% of stimulus funds be dedicated to students' mental health and wellness. The numbers I'm showing you on the screen right now, I need to change just a bit, but you've seen these numbers before. And this is based on a more robust intake survey that we implemented this year to better understand the needs of our students. So almost 40% of our students have said that COVID has impacted their learning. At least 8% have said that they have felt hungry. They have food insecurity. 26% have been affected by COVID job losses. And then the last two categories, these numbers are wrong. The first one, it says, I struggled with mental health and I sought professional help. That number should be 67%. So right here, this number here, that should be 67%. And this number here, and I did not seek help, should be 33%. So 54% of students said they had mental health challenges. And out of that 54%, 67% said they were seeking help for it. And that is why this timely care is really, really important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about timely care and make sure that you fully understand and fully provide an update around the services we're providing students. Timely care is 24/7 on-demand medical and health services, medical and mental health services. As I said before, they provide a whole suite of medical services, so that allows students to update refills or prescriptions, but also get attention in terms of if they're feeling physically ill with a cold or flu, and then a whole set of services around mental health and wellness. As I said before, they have been around for about 5 years. They're really one of the only industry practices that offer both services. And since the pandemic has started, they've added these two services, health coaching and basic needs. Now, I want to make sure that we fully understand that what we're providing is an enhancement to what we're doing rather than a replacing what we're doing. When a student initiates, students are always initiating these services. When they initiate it directly with timely care alerts FLCC, so the appropriate student health or counseling office. They use our language and our protocols to interact with students. And then our face-to-face or in-person services are augmenting the online services students are providing. So it's really a team approach. And we knew that when we entered the agreement with timely care, but I have to say we've been pleasantly surprised with how well it's been implemented. And that's really what I wanted to start showing you today in terms of our return on investment. So maybe I'll just pause there before I talk about any specific numbers or the aggregated data and find out if there are any questions.
Questions for
Jonathan, this is Jeff. Maybe not so much a question as a comment. If I understood you correctly, you said that about 67% of the students are actually seeking help. I find that rather encouraging. I mean, it's unfortunate that they need the help, but the fact that they're willing to ask for help and use the program to do it rather than just, being isolated and suffering on their own, I think is encouraging in terms of the general attitude towards mental health issues.
I completely agree with you. In fact, one of the reasons why I think there's an error on this slide is because we went back and checked the intake survey data twice to make sure we had the accurate data, because we were all surprised that of the students who reported mental health issues, 2/3 were already actively seeking help for it.
Jonathan, I have a comment too. I want to piggyback off of what Jeff said. Only 36% of the kids answered this survey. I'm really wondering, in the greater population, how many more have taken advantage of this. I mean, this is just 36% that we're hearing from. And I agree. I think this is very positive that they're reaching out and getting the help. And I'm so pleased that you chose to go with a program like this. And even though it'll pay, you know, we have the money for 3 years, I certainly think this is something that we have to think about budgeting all the time. This is certainly well worthwhile.
I completely agree. Many of the colleges that implement this work already, they roll it into student fees. Because of stimulus funds, we did not take that option. We did not have to go that route. But when we look to fully implement after stimulus funds are exhausted 3 years from now, we might look into different ways to augment the price for students, such as student fees, or figuring out how to pay for this service. But we are already seeing a return on investment.
Jonathan, this is Santa. I have a question.
Sure.
Since Timely Care turns around and tells FLCC that a student contacted them, is that breaking any HIPAA laws by them coming back to us?
Really good question. And no FERPA or student laws. We have the software and the practices to hold medical records. So just like our immunization records for vaccination are used or housed in a program called Pyramid, we're not in any violation around HIPAA. And in fact, the agency works very, very closely with FERPA and HIPAA laws to make sure that colleges fully are aware of and understand those conditions. And it's not unlike other colleges. All colleges that offer any in-person or online medical or mental health services to students, which is the vast majority of many colleges, all four-year colleges, and the vast majority of, I'd say, the majority of community colleges, we all have secure medical records that are HIPAA compliant.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. Do the students know that Timely Wise is going to turn around and tell FLCC? Do they know that up front?
They know that it's a team approach. And I also want to make sure that I articulate this in fully that it's about the service that was provided and not about the details. So let's say that I took advantage of a service, Talk Now, and I needed a counseling session in the moment, and I had a counseling session with a provider, and it might have been from whatever that might be. It might be that I'm really anxious about school and I had an anxiety attack, or it might be I had ideations about self-harm, and either one, that specifics are not disclosed at all.
Okay.
What's disclosed is that I,
call.
Jonathan, sought this type of help. So that alerts someone on our team, A, that about a utilization rate, but two, that Jonathan sought this help, and then that augments with our own, but they don't know anything. Nothing is disclosed that would be of private nature.
Thank you.
Jonathan, Steve here. I wonder if you could talk about the intersection after Timely Care has done their analysis, when the actual college services that you refer to kind of as a wraparound, the support kind of kicks in. Is there a specific time? I realize it may vary student to student, but in general, when does that occur?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
So I'm curious as to the college's campus services, in addition to what Timely Care in terms of this particular information is identified. How does the college services, when do they actually kick in? Right away, or is there a period of time that that it happens in terms of it being graded?
They're all at the same time. So a student could decide, I need to talk to a counselor, and a student could decide, I want to talk to someone right now. I'm going to initiate that conversation online with Timely Care, or it might be a walk-in appointment with our counseling office. So both are at the, does that help answer it? They're both,
Right. So,
it's an enhancement, not a replacement.
thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
And I have usage on each of these in the following slides. I don't want to karaoke like specific data points. I just want everyone to really feel confident that we're meeting the needs of students, and that we are enhancing our services in this team, in-person and online approach with this service provider, and that we have a pretty what I would say a pretty strong return on investment.
Jonathan, one other quick question. Just the data that you're showing us, as far as the surveys, the first set of data, is that being shared with faculty and staff? And are they aware of what the students are going through? Are they aware? They're probably going through the same thing themselves, but are they also aware of how to refer the students to the service?
Yes. And about mid-October, we have really stepped up our communications and promotion of this. We implemented this fall of 21 for the first time at the same time that we were standing up surveillance testing and COVID testing and all of the other things that are really stressing our people and our systems. But Student Corp, and I'm going to really talk about how students saw this. Student Corp, our student organization, realized the importance of this, and they helped fund, at least in part, a part-time position that is around communication, student communications. And normally this position might be really dedicated to talking about student engagement and clubs and activities, but they really dedicated starting fall, about mid to late fall, that this was really what the most important job for this position would be. And it's only a few hours a week, to be perfectly honest, but it's a dedicated support system around communication to students, faculty, and staff about this service, so that faculty understand how to connect students to it, so that students are fully aware of it. And it's a really, I'd say, a very strong communication campaign. So the answer is, we started the fall off implementing this work, and then sometime in mid-fall, we really stepped up the communication plan for it. Does that answer the question? Great. I'm just going to go through some of the daily usage or the timely care usage. The data that you're seeing on the next few slides are as of the end of November. So it doesn't take into account any of the last 3 weeks of the semester. So what you're seeing on the screen is our on-demand medical service visits, our scheduled service visits. There's also some explanation about what types of services students are seeking or why they might seek this service. Talk Now is our emergency counseling. There's also scheduled counseling visits, psychiatric and health coaching. In terms of our usage, now this would be our community standards and counseling services. Again, as an enhancement, what you saw in the previous slide, this slide, is our timely care usage rates. This is what students are using our in-person services. And these are almost all underreported, to be perfectly honest. I'll give you an example. Flix Place is a walk-in service. We don't necessarily track who's taking care, like who's utilizing our Flix Place. Our Flix Closet is household items and clothing, like a food closet, or like it's not the food pantry, it's household items and clothing that students could take advantage of. And if you make an appointment, we're tracking appointments there 3, but that does not take into account any of the walk-ins. And our food support is very similar to that. So 25 appointments to make a student appointment to take advantage of our food cupboard, but there's certainly walk-in appointments that aren't captured here. So again, it's our radar reports. These are referrals from faculty. These are up. Requests for services, food support or food pantry, emergency loan, and Flex Place. And then the last slide of this, it's showing our student health office and the appointments and the work of this office. And you can see the emails and messaging are well over 1,000 in terms of talking with students or messaging specific students about the need to upload different items or back and forth around immunization or COVID questions. So again, I'll just pause one more time. I know there's a lot to cover in this meeting, but find out if there's any questions.
Jonathan, you
the data.
reference Pyramid. What is Pyramid?
Pyramid is the service and software solution we use to upload immunization records. Prior to having Pyramid, they were all handled with paper. They were physical paper. So you would take your immunization records to the student health office. Prior to COVID, we had immunization requirements, specifically around MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella, and they were all paper. We implemented Pyramid fall of 2019, and thank goodness we did, because we all know what happened March of 20. So we were very behind the curve. Being a small school, we were able to handle paper records, but we would be in a very different situation if we didn't implement Pyramid at that time.
Thank you.
Jonathan, this is Donna Mihalik.
Yes.
I have a question about the length of time that the service is available to students. So does the service end with the last day of classes, or did it extend through the holiday, through to like the end of the month?
It extends through the entire academic year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we don't cut off services to students because it's, Christmas break or holiday break or spring break. It's a full academic year of service.
Thank you.
Actually, if I might, that also includes summer. So we students who are currently matriculated students will have summer access through summer, and then it rolls over as we go into the fall.
Any final questions?
No, but this is Tim. I do want to make a comment relevant to the telehealth program. I think it's important to reinforce that it supports diversity, equity, and inclusion here at the college. The students actually have the liberty to select a provider that matches their social identity if that's important to them. So if I would like to see an African-American counselor, I can filter through the system in order to get that. If a person wants to see a provider who may have experience living with a disability, they have those nuances within the technology to be a shared lived experience and foster a higher level of understanding. So I just want to put the DEI contribution to that conversation.
Sim, that's a great point, and I should have mentioned it. It's a national network of providers that allow customized services for students. So, for instance, as a gay man, if I wanted to see a mental health provider who specifically had experience in LGBT health, we offer that as a service. Thanks again, and please do not hesitate if you have any questions around how we're trying to support students' medical or mental health. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Moving on, we have 3 resolutions to go through. First is to grant Professional Association Administration appointment for Rick Klenowitz, Director of Information Systems. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Trustee Cushman. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, good. I was a little worried about my computer here. It's been on the blink a little bit. Good evening, everyone. Rick Klenotis, is your video turned on? Where are you? There you are. Okay, waving on the screen. That's good. This evening, I've got the pleasure of recommending Rick Klenotis, Director of Information Systems, for his administrative appointment. Rick's been with us since 2016, and he's brought with him a broad range of experience and wisdom. In his past, he's owned a number of technology companies, and he has excellent knowledge of networking systems and information security. He's led our team here at FLCC through many important projects, including our VoIP telephone project, our migration from the Galaxy Card Access to the Seaboard platform, SUNY Strategic Identity Initiative, the replacement of our compute and storage facilities with new VxRail hyper-converged infrastructure. That's really fancy. It's good stuff. Adobe Sign, that's great. New XGrid backup facilities and more. Rick and his team were also the group that migrated the Board of Trustees to using iPads and Adobe PDF a few years ago. I don't know if you all remember that, but we're no longer pushing papers around. And Rick, you've probably saved about 1 million trees so far. Rick's also got extensive data center experience in that he owned a company that implemented new data centers across the country. And that knowledge has helped us immeasurably with our recent sharing of our Geneva server room with Ontario County and our planned renovations for our Canandaigua server room. Rick also has the gift of being able to explain highly technical things to users who are non-technical. And Rick does all of this with a calm demeanor and a smile, and it is indeed a pleasure to work with him. With that, I recommend Rick Klenotis for his administrative appointment. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Well done. Rick, we do appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone.
Moving along, and the second resolution is to adjust Finger Lakes Community College professional service roster. Ms. Palauchek.
Thank you, Trustee Cushman, and good evening, everybody. We do have a handful of titles for your review in your packet. The first one that you'll see is the Assistant Director of Workforce and Career Solutions. This is not a new employee headcount, but rather adjustment of a previous title that was used in order to reflect the new name of the department. So we previously had a assistant director position that had the old department name in it, and now this assistant director position will reflect the Workforce and Career Solutions name of the department. The next one that we have is the Admissions Financial Aid Counselor, and this is again an adjustment of an existing title. The previous title used to have something added on to it that designated that the position was for special populations, and we're just dropping that designation from the title. So it will be Admissions Financial Aid Counselor. The next one is the Vice President of Administration and Finance. This is one that we found in a routine audit of titles that we have on file with SUNY. It had not previously been filed when the position was revised back in, I think, 2015. So this is just an update of this title so that we can put that on file with SUNY. We also have a data analyst part-time. This is a newly created position, and this is to support growing research and analysis needs in APCI. This one is budgeted, so it's not adding any incremental funds to the budget. Next, we have the YEA Program Manager part-time, which again, like the VP of Finance and Administration, is one that we found was not on file with SUNY. It's an existing position. We're not adding a position. This is just one that we need to make sure is on file with SUNY. And the technical specialist art lab part-time. This is a new part-time position created in February 2021 to support the art lab. It has already been in place for the past year. So again, this is not adding funds to the budget. It's already captured, and we're catching up our roster of titles on file with SUNY. Any questions about any of these? Okay, thank you very much.
Hearing none, it was very thorough. Move on, don't go far. Do the smoking and tobacco use on campus policy.
Yes, thank you. In your packet, you have a resolution to extend the temporary policy that you approved last year. This policy was put in place in light of new information that we learned about how COVID was being spread, which is through respiratory droplets. And based on the best information that we had available, it was advisable to have smoking be farther away from entrances to our facilities, where that smoke might carry respiratory droplets and spread the virus. So all 4 unions have agreed to an extension of this policy. That the change to the pre-existing policy was really to make the distance from the building go from 30 feet away from the building to 500 feet away from the building. And that is a change that we're proposing to keep in place through this academic year. So it will go through August 31st of this year.
Any questions on? Thank you, Ms. Polacek.
Thank you.
I do, it's interesting, Steve Martin and I had a conversation recently about clean rooms, and I did work with clean rooms and was certified and so forth, but a level 1 clean room, even if you're using a respirator, if you've had a smoke break, you had to stay out for an additional 30 minutes after the smoke break, even with a respirator filtering that air. That's how much those droplets get around. So I think it's a reasonable policy you have in place. So we have 2 strategic thought presentations. The first is DEI and Dr. Covington.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to share my screen if I can. Give me 1 second. Can you see my screen? Yes. So very quickly, obviously you have the plan. I won't go through the whole plan because it's so long, but it's intentionally extensive by default of 2 reasons. 1, the campus always asks for our efforts around DEI to be fully comprehensive. And 2, as we have middle states coming up, they always ask for evidence. So I rather overwhelm them with evidence than not provide enough. One of the first things I would like to highlight in the DEI report is that our numbers are definitely increasing significantly around diversity recruitment. I want to give a shout out to Human Resources in regards to their collaborative efforts in this area. Prodigy is once again a grant through SUNY that we have been provisionally approved for. Some bad news is that we actually had death at SUNY. The VP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion unfortunately passed away. As a result of that, there's been some hiccups at administration, which is holding up some of the funding. But we are provisionally certified, provisionally approved, and we're just waiting for the final approval. Here we have some initiatives relevant to Ladies First, some things that we're doing as an institution to not only support the recruitment of females, but also to promote them within our rankings here at the college. We have an individual of color who's going to be serving as the department chair within our area of our business department, Patrick Ray, shout out to culinary. VP of administration, one of our officers in campus police. The second strategy under our diversity recruitment is to recruit more veterans. So we are actually doing that here at the college. Efforts that we're having around diversity, including in regards to diverse student recruitment, as well as retention. Our diverse students are actually staying in comparison to our other students. As you probably saw in the plan, the graphics here show the layout in regards to how they're staying in comparison to our other students and within different diverse populations. Something else that I really wanted to highlight is that we're making progress around accessibility, right? So our EITA plan, we've made progress there. As a result of our plan being so great, shout out to John Taylor and Sarah Moon, SUNY has reached out to ask me to serve on a committee that shows other colleges how to get their plan together. So I think that's a kudos to the leadership that we have here at FLCC. In addition to that, policies that we have in place to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, our institutionally recognized name policy, our gender neutral bathroom policy. I'm coming. Things we're doing relevant to the academic curriculum. Oh, very big deal. Within our mathematics department, for those of you who are not familiar with the movie or the history of the movie, for Hidden Figures, the contributions of African-American women to NASA, we actually have a math professor here who is going to be looking to teach math one-on-one and to incorporate Hidden Figures, which we're extremely excited about. As we're getting ready for the DEI changes to the general educational requirement through SUNY, we do have the chair of our academic senate and a wonderful faculty member who's going to be leading some conversations during opening days. Very important. Efforts we're making around our high impact practices. Shout out to Jaden, who actually just got a new position in Deb Ortlow's area, APCI. Different things that we're doing relevant to diversity programming. Alana, we have a very esteemed alumni who has graduated from FLCC, has gone out to do great things, going to Newport, getting his graduate degree out in Colorado, and he's going to be coming back here this spring to be an artist in residence for a couple of weeks. Our students are extremely excited about that. He actually was the final program for Fall 21 for our Alana students. The president attended and it was very well received. Different programs that we're doing. And last but not least, suites at Laker Landing, things that we're doing within our suites to support diversity, equity, inclusion, and things that we're doing around town gown relations. So being that you already have that, I'm going to stop sharing that, but there is something else that I would like to share. Give me 1 second. And things that we're going to be doing for spring of 22. So in regards to some internal initiatives, I'm very happy to let you know that things are being finally secured for spring 22 opening days. We have the president from Rockland Community College who's going to be coming here to be the keynote, speaking about student success and equity in higher education. Very excited about that. Something that's going to be different about his keynote is that he's going to be actually having our campus engage and participate in some breakout sessions. And we have some faculty and staff here who have been willing to lead those efforts. So interconnectedness at its highest level. These are the different programs that we're going to be putting on through my office in collaboration with the Office of Student Life. So some different things this spring. Cultural appreciation versus cultural appropriation. The voices of our LGBTQ+ students, people of color and mental health, living with autism, and political diversity. So very excited about the diversity programming that's going to be going on for spring of 22. For those of you who may know, I sit on the board of directors for the Urban League of Rochester, and I've been having some real great conversations with our VP of Enrollment Management, shout out to Carol, in regards to continuing our strategic partnership with the Urban League of Rochester. Historically, since I've been here, and I believe prior to my arrival, we've always supported the Black Scholars Dinner. We've also begun to sponsor the Black Scholars Dinner through the Urban League of Rochester. And we're going to be having some conversations in a campus visit with their entire leadership team. So we're very excited about that. Not only are they going to be coming to Canandaigua, we're also having conversations about them visiting our Victor Campus Center to talk about not only our academic degree programs, but also our certificate programs. What you see now is currently a work in progress. So I've been having some conversations with the college presidents in regards to focusing on our underrepresented minority students and considering the future that we would like to shape for them here at FLCC. So utilizing our retention reports through APCI as a foundation, I'm actually going to be working with APCI to look at conducting an investigation in regards to the retention of our students. quantitatively just to look at the wrong numbers, but also qualitatively to see why our students are either staying or leaving, right? So some different populations from diverse backgrounds that we're going to take into consideration as athletes, those who are staying in our suites, our local apartments, our Atlanta students, Ontario County, Monroe County, as well as our student online students. The rationale for this initiative is to develop a data-informed early intervention strategy to support our underrepresented students, especially as we are looking to bring more students to FLCC, potentially from New York City, right? And also in adopting or incorporating a push-pull approach. So pushing out innovative practices to support, new services or technology to support students, and drawing students in to connect them to the proper services that we have here at the college. Those of you know that we have a chapter of PTK. We are still pretty successful with our PTK chapter for fall 2021. We had 111 new inductees into PTK. As of right now, to get a little bit informal, the great thing with PTK is that we've always had the opportunity to take our students to the PTK conference. Last year, we had our students participate in the PTK conference virtually, but to be completely blunt, it's not the same, right? But because of COVID, sometimes they're unfortunately shutting things down. As of right now, for spring 2022, the PTK conference is scheduled to be in Colorado. And we plan to go depending on what happens with COVID nationally, globally, et cetera. As of right now, it's still scheduled for Colorado, and we do have the funding. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. External success, once again, thank you very much for the kudos in regards to the election for City Council. I got sworn in last Friday. We started work this week. We are continuing our efforts with local law enforcement. I completed the Citizens Academy for Ontario County, and I'm continuing to work with and provide implicit bias training for all of the officers who are being trained through the Finger Lakes Law Enforcement Academy, also serving as the keynote for their graduation last year. Excuse me. This January for Martin Luther King Day, the NAACP out of Geneva has requested that I serve as their keynote. So not only just Canandaigua, but things that we're doing in the area, which is big for us, especially in Geneva, because as you know, we have a campus center there. For the good of the order, just relevant to leadership development, I'm happy to share with you that I just completed 2 programs through Harvard Business School in Organizational Leadership and Leadership and Management. And that is my report. I really want to open up the floor for questions relevant to the DEI report. I get some emails from many of you.
If I could, Dr. Sim, wow. I think all of us are equally impressed with not only the work you're doing on campus and for those constituents on campus, but your reach, far reach, not just in the service area of Finger Lakes Community College, but the surrounding area, and your intersectionality, if you will, is really quite impressive and equally impressive. So not only carrying the inclusion, diversity, and equity message, but also carrying the FLCC message. So thank you for that. And I realize there are lots of opportunities, but it seems like you're everywhere. And we're really quite grateful for your work. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Covington. One question on students with disabilities. Are there any actions for students with disabilities? What percentage of our students have disabilities on campus? Are there any programs for them?
Great question. So in regards to the stat, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but absolutely we have an Office of Disability. Oh, Deb, you want to say something?
10% of our students self-disclose a disability, which means that they apply for support through the disability services offices and have to show evidence of needing that support, usually through an IEP from high school, not always. However, that number grossly underestimates or underreports. And if you combine that with some of the statistics Jonathan was sharing, particularly around mental health needs, we have a much larger need around understanding what students who might have debilitating issues in a classroom or learning setting related to things such as ADHD, anxiety, OCD, all of those really affect learning and often come under mental health services and aren't always always identified traditionally in an IEP. So it's very, very underrepresented, but the statistic as reported based on the way it's operationalized is 10%.
And to get back to your question, yes, we provide a variety of services for individuals living with a disability. So it's going to primarily be through our ASAP office, academic support, which is under Lisa Thomas. So in regards to all of the programs and services that we're providing for them, it's fairly extensive, George. Yeah. Was there any other questions relevant to the report?
Thank you, Dr. Covington. Excellent job. Thank you. And moving on to our second strategic thought presentation, Middle States Reaffirmation, Dr. Ortloff.
Hi there, everyone. Nice to see you all again and Happy New Year. We are very, very deep into Middle States Reaffirmation. We're at the living, breathing, eating, sleeping stage of finishing our self-study. This is primarily being spearheaded at this point by the executive team, which consists of our two co-chairs, Maureen Mass-Fury, who's a professor in our humanities department, and Michael Fisher, who is AVP of Enrollment Management. I also sit on our executive team, as well as Karen Fisher, who is the Associate Director in APCI. So we have are in the process of going through each chapter and refining it, as well as loading the evidence into the separate database that we've created. You got a link to the Chapter 7 version of that. That's a product called Airtable, which we use for data management. That allows us to link each piece of evidence to the correct citation. That citation is an in-text citation in the actual report. But when we actually upload all of this, that it has to be done separately. So it's sort of like a preparation process. We are not allowed to link evidence as you would sort of more traditionally see now, and what you're probably more accustomed to getting. Here's a PDF, there's a reference to a piece of evidence, you click on it and it pops up. That's not the way Middle States has us submit it. So the example that we sent you with Chapter 7 and then the Airtable database is how each chapter has to be prepared right now in order for us then to get it ready to upload to the system. So it's a time-consuming process, but it does allow us to have quite a bit of due diligence, because each piece of evidence has to be prepared separately, and then it's reconnected to the internal citation. We put the citation and header on each piece of evidence. So it allows us to really check to make sure that we have the right piece of evidence, that it's being cited correctly, that it looks right, etc. Very gratefully, we have some temporary support, administrative support for that particular process, and that person, her name is Connie Olson, has been excellent, really a high quality addition, even if temporarily, to the FLCC team. And she's really going through and putting each thing into that format that we're talking about. So it's quite a time consuming process, but it does allow us to do a lot of due diligence in connecting evidence to argument, which is essentially what the name of the game is with accreditation and with the process that Middle States has asked us to go through. While we're doing that, we're actually finalizing the chapters. So that's, of course, are we making the right argument to answer the criterion as presented? And are we presenting evidence to back up that argument? We have two external reviewers. This is not our official reviewers. These are reviewers who hold somewhat similar positions to myself at other colleges in New York, who are reading it for us. They're both members of SCOA, which is the SUNY committee on assessment. I think I got that right. It's an executive group of folks who SUNY has tapped to do some leadership SUNY-wide on SCOA. I'm a member, and so they're also members. They have all but one of our chapters now. So we're still refining standard 3. That should go out tomorrow or Friday to them. So throughout December, they've been reading each chapter, giving us feedback. They developed a rubric sort of to give us feedback on each thing. And that's a really helpful process because they're experts in the field, but they're also a little removed from the process, right? When you get to this point in the 100-page report, probably 2,000 plus pages of appendices, the forest and the trees blend, right? So it's really helpful to have that external perspective. So that process is going on now. We have a final meeting with them on Monday, so we'll sort of conclude that external review process early next week. And make some adjustments based on that, although some of those we've been making as we go, as we continue to work with them. And at that point, we will also once again let folks in the FLCC community know that if they're interested in looking at where we are with the draft, they can also look at it again. The steering committee has been continually sort of going back and forth with us as we've been sort of moving past them writing and us versus us writing. But we'll do that process again over the sort of next couple of weeks. And during that time period, we have a writing team. So that's one of our emeritus professors from the English program, Barbara Murphy, as well as current English professor Chris Parker. They are doing a full English professor read through, which again, that sort of forest and trees scenario, it's really important to get that done. And while we've worked on tone and voice in this revision process over the last month, they're still very separate chapters. So it's very helpful to have a group that's really only looking at copy editing, tone, voice, all of those types of things. So that begins next week as well, simultaneous to us getting some additional content feedback, as I said, from the greater community, as well as really working on refining that evidence, that process that I described of creating those PDFs, and we've had to create a whole host of different compendia of minutes and things like that, because the external review folks will not necessarily easily access our intranet and other things like that. So we have to sort of set things that we can access, like Board of Trustees minutes, we have to redo completely and create a new compendium of them. So some of those things we'll just sort of keep working on as we're sort of coming down the pike here. So that's where we are. I would say we're about a week later than I would like us to be, but it's all coming together as it sort of should. And we'll continue to be refining in all the ways that I just talked about. So as you know, I sent out to you the current draft. That draft, in all honesty, has changed a little bit since we sent it out to you, because as I mentioned, it's a bit of an iterative process. So, we've located another piece of evidence or gotten a piece of feedback and changed a few things. But the standard 7 chapter is the standard that primarily deals with the role of the Board of Trustees and the role of governance. That was in your board packet. You will, of course, get the entire self-study with plenty of time to read it in all of its glory, in plenty of time. So you'll be getting that in February, beginning of February. The visit is at the very end of March. So you'll have quite a bit of time to actually read the whole document. And then we'll also be doing some dedicated prep time where I come in and talk to you about what will happen during the actual visit, what kinds of questions they might ask you, and you'll be able to also talk to me about things that you have questions on and all of that. So there's still sort of quite a bit that will happen between now and when the actual self-study happens, but we're really sort of focused on that finalization of document right now, since we'll be providing that to the Middle States folks. The second week of February is when we turn that in, end of the second week. So it's essentially mid-February because of the shortness of the February month. So as you know, or as I said, I provided that chapter 7 to you, so you have a sense, a pretty strong sense of what that chapter is going to look like. It will be a little bit shorter and a little bit more cleaned up, and there were a couple pieces of evidence that we still have to get copies of and things like that, but it is substantially representing the arguments that we intend to make. For those of you who had a chance to look at it, that standard, as I said, deals quite a bit with the role of the Board of Trustees, the role of policy, the role of governance, and the sort of interplay of all of those things at the college. And I think we've put forward a good argument for having, excuse me, a highly engaged Board of Trustees and a well-articulated governance process, which I do believe we have, and we didn't have to stretch the truth on that in any way to make that argument, which is always great. So one of the things you might notice is there's a little bit of overlap in some of the answers, both within this chapter and as you later on read the whole self-study, you'll see this again. And that is because there's simply overlap in the criterion. They sort of sometimes ask the same thing in slightly different ways. But while you want to try to have it read as a full document, you also have to be realistic that in general, the reviewers who will be coming in, there will be most likely 4 of them. It does depend, and we have not gotten the name of our reviewers yet. They are picked because they have different areas of expertise. So there's the team lead, whom some of you met when she visited us in September, Dr. McMenamin. That person is generally a college president, sometimes a provost, sometimes a senior VP at another college. Then there's almost always an assessment person, so someone with a background somewhat similar to mine. And then there's almost always a finance person. So I'm looking at you, Adam. And and then from there they'll sort of pick. There's usually a faculty member or another person whose current role is that of a forward-facing educator, either in the classroom or co-curricularly. So that's generally what you're going to see. And because of that, they will read these chapters with their expertise. So the finance person is going to go to Standard 6 and read Standard 6, and they might only skim the other pieces. And of course, that isn't necessarily exactly what they're instructed to do, but that's sort of the reality of how these things play out. So you do need to be careful that when a criterion asks you a question, even if you're substantially answering it somewhere else, you want to make sure that you give enough of an answer in each of the criterion areas to continue to tell that story. So as you know, there's generally a little bit of repetition, both within and across the self-study, and that is normal. It will get a little bit less as we go through these final stages of editing, because that's one of the things that as you go through your final read-throughs, you have a better sense of it. Steve, I think I see your hand up.
I do. Can we anticipate that the reviewers are experienced with the community college setting as opposed to maybe a 4-year or a university setting?
That's the aim of Middle States. Certainly, we know our team chair is an experienced community college educator. And generally, they will not send someone who has no community college experience, but it can happen. It wouldn't be all of the team members, or it could be someone who doesn't currently work at a community college, but did in the past. I actually spoke with our VP today briefly because I am trying to get them to tell us who our reviewers are. We normally would know already by now. But as with all things in the world of COVID, things are taking a little bit longer. And he did sort of indicate that COVID has made putting together some of the teams a little bit more challenging. So could that have an impact on community college experience? Theoretically, but we shouldn't expect to have a team predominantly without community college experience. There will, however, to that point, not be anyone from the SUNY system, and likely not from New York at all.
Sure. And then after we presented, they've been here on campus, quote unquote. What can we anticipate? Remind us again, is it just a waiting game? Is there some more requests for information? What do you anticipate?
So it can go either way. It sort of depends on how things play out a little bit, but in general, they will do an exit meeting with us on the day of on their last day. Usually the last sort of event that they have the morning of their last day will be a meeting with minimally the steering committee and members of the administration, board of trustees. Sometimes it's a full open meeting. They'll need to indicate what they want for that meeting when we get to the point of setting up their schedule for the visit. And they'll give us sort of a findings report of what they think it will be. And they'll sort of say, now this could change a little bit, or, you know, they'll sort of caveat it a little bit, but they'll give you a strong indication of where things are going upon their exit. It is possible that they'll request some information upon leaving. That doesn't happen very often. Usually, they've sort of requested it during the time period that they're here, and they can do that the entire time they're here. If they have an interview, say with you, and they come away and they say, "I want all of the Board of Trustees minutes." Although we have already provided that to them, we would then provide that to them again, or we would pull out a specific one if you referenced a particular one and they wanted to see that. That kind of interplay happens throughout the time period that they're here. And then theoretically, they could ask for something upon leaving, but that is less likely. From there, there's within a few weeks, I want to say it's 6 weeks, they have to provide a report back to us for factual error correction. So if they write a report and they actually cite something incorrectly, or they misunderstood it, or they say they didn't give us blah, 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 blah in a compliance report, and in fact we correct that error at that point. Once that correction time period has gone forward, they submit that report to the commission. The commission will meet in July. So no formal action happens until that commission meeting, but we will know what would be happening at that meeting prior to that because of that factual error correction time period.
Great. Thank you very much.
And so any other questions? I think I sort of substantially covered where we are. If anyone was able to spend some time with Seven and has a thought or question about that, I'd be happy to go over that. As I said, we will be spending more significant time both on the whole self-study and then also very specifically on Standard 7, because it's the standard that primarily covers Board of Trustee action in preparation for their visit in February.
Look forward to.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Ortloff. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting. I'll take a motion to adjourn. If someone would speak up, I'm not able to see everybody.
George, this is Joan. I move that we adjourn the education and planning meeting.
Thank you, Joan. And may I have a second?
This is Jeff. I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. The meeting's adjourned. We turn the floor over to Trustee Cass.
Thank you, Trustee Cushman. I'd like to call the January meeting of Finance and Facilities Committee in order. I ask if there's any corrections or additions to the minutes. We had a small one earlier today that's been taken care of. Thank you, Penny, for that. There being none, Mr. Rathman, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Trustee Cass. I have several reports that I'm going to review, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so the first report here is a fiscal year end financial report for fiscal year 2020-2021. First item to note is our audit for this fiscal year is still ongoing, and this report represents data pulled from our internal reporting tools. The audited fiscal report may differ slightly as we continue to make adjustments with the auditors. If you recall, the 2020-2021 budget was started to creation prior to the pandemic and was approved by the board in July of 2020. At that time, a large portion of federal stimulus funds represented as federal aid on this report was not anticipated as a budget item. So the initial approved budget was $41.6 million. After 2 budget resolutions, the final approved budget was just over $48 million. What I first want to point out is the grant activity line represented right here, the 4.2 million and then 1.8 million. While this line is accurate from a system reporting standpoint, which is colleague, it is not reflective of the grant activity for the particular fiscal year of ending 2021. The 4.2 million represents all active grants awarded to the college to include grants awarded prior to the fiscal year and previously approved by the board. For example, a grant awarded in July of 2019 for a period of 3 years would be included in this figure. What is submitted to the board in a resolution each year is new grant activity, and that figure should have been represented in that grant activity line. So if you recall, the board approved a budget resolution in September to increase the budget by $1.4 million. This was to account for the grants received by the college during this current fiscal year. So this 4.2 million should represent 1.4 million with actual expenses on those grants of roughly $840,000. Also, a portion of this grant revenue line includes federal stimulus funds, which were included in the line. So these should also have been backed out. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to hit a button and create a report. Our reports are hand generated based on roughly a 200-page financial report pulled from colleague. So I continue to learn and develop best practices as I develop these monthly reports. On the revenue side, the budget and actuals are higher than the approved budget of 48 million. The year-end realized revenue was 49.8 million. This is not a concern, as higher revenue than anticipated is generally a good thing. 2 factors played in part to this. One was tuition and fees, and the other was a state appropriation. The state appropriation was budgeted at an anticipated decrease of 20%. However, SUNY did not follow through on that anticipated decrease in state appropriated aid. What is more important from SUNY administration standpoint is ensuring we expense at or below our planned budget. So on the expense side, total expenses for the year were 46.1 million, which was under the approved budget of 48 million. At year end, with revenues of 49.8 million, compared to expenses of the 46.1 million, we were under budget by 3.7 million. Again, keep in mind, this is not an official year-end financial report. It's what we pulled out of colleague. The true financial year-end report will be presented in our annual financial report that is being conducted by Bonadio. The second report that I'm going to present is a fiscal year-end report. However, this one kind of indicates no federal aid. And the reason that I'm kind of just showing this is to kind of give an understanding of what the budget would have looked like had we not received any federal stimulus funds due to the pandemic. So in this line, you can see it's the same. Everything is the same with the exception of the federal aid being zeroed out. So with that being zeroed out, we have, this is the approved budget was still 41.6 million. And so what we want to first point out is that the final budget here does not include any resolutions that increased our budget to the 48 million, as these were tied to federal stimulus funds. On the revenue side, the budget was set to 41.6, and we have realized revenue of 44.4 million. Main factors for the increase was, again, tuition and fees and state appropriation. On the expense side, if we look at the initial budget of 41.6 million compared to actual expenses of 44.5 million, we would have been over budget by $2.9 million. The increase in expenses is mainly due to a large investment in technology and contractual obligations to ensure continuity of operations due to the pandemic. The increase in realized revenue of 44.4 million would have been a saving grace, so to speak, as would have been over budget by only $100,000. That's referring to the 44.4 million up here compared to this 44.5 rounding numbers. One thing to note, which is not apparent on this report, is I did back out $1.7 million in expenses that was paid out towards student accounts. If you call back in August board meeting, a resolution was approved to write off student account balances from spring of 2020 through spring of 2021 using HERF funding. It is my assumption that the college would not have had the fiscal ability to write off that student account balance. So if we were to account for that expense, we would have ended the year roughly $1.8 million over budget. Again, this is informational only, just to kind of show the impact that the federal stimulus funds did have on our budget this past fiscal year. Moving on to the third report, this is our typical month-end report for November through November 30th of 2021. This report represents 25% of the fiscal year. Year to date through November, we've expensed roughly 25% of the college budget. So we're maintaining good fiscal standing. There are a few lines that I'd like to point out. One on the revenue side, although we are only at 25% into the fiscal year, revenues received from tuition is roughly 66% of the budget. This is accurate considering the majority of our revenue stream coincides with the start of our semesters. This is also an indication of Dr. Urbatus's report earlier that our enrollment numbers are better than anticipated for this fiscal year. On the expense side, again, I mentioned before, we are maintaining good fiscal standing as we are within at 25% of expenses compared to budget. And again, I'd also like to point out the grant activity. Considering my previous explanation regarding grant activity, this is a line that I'd like to dissect a little more to ensure that we are providing accurate financial information for current year active grants within our system. Any questions on these reports? Okay, so the last thing I'm going to review is a stimulus update, and I am going to share a spreadsheet that I've been working on along with other members of the cabinet that is tracking our stimulus funding. So currently the funds need to be expensed by May of 2022. So we have roughly 5 months. However, we do have the ability to request an extension, which we most likely will do. Previous to this spreadsheet, there were 2 documents being maintained, one with IT initiatives and the other that was being run by a 2+2 committee formed by Dr. Nye and other members of the campus community. I have combined them and I'm still working on ensuring I have all information and that we are actively tracking these initiatives on a daily basis. So what this shows is the three funding streams that we've received, HERF 1 or CARES, HERF 2 or Courier, and HERF 3 ARP. And the funding that was received through these three funding sources. This line here represents all of the total allocated or spent funds. So for HERF 1 or CARES Act, we have fully expended all of those funds. HERF 2, Courier, we have expensed everything but roughly $61,000 of that funding. And then HERF 3 and ARP, we have either expensed or have allocated towards initiatives roughly all of that funding, with the exception of about $350,000. Now, the items highlighted in yellow represent approved initiatives with unrealized expenses to this point. Some of these were estimates and may not need all the funding. So we are currently reviewing all of those. One thing to note is our ability to prepay multi-year subscriptions. For example, this Timely MD, this $812,000 estimate is for a 4-year agreement. So what will be important from a budgeting perspective is understanding these multi-year agreements and how many years we've prepaid. When we incorporate the multi-year budgeting model, which I hope to do next budget cycle, we will have a better understanding of how these agreements impact our fiscal planning in the years out. So you can just see here an example of some of the initiatives we have undertaken. Obviously, when the pandemic started, covered expenses related to various initiatives that was in a direct response to the immediate COVID response. We do have lost revenue that we can realize based on student tuition and fees. We've recognized 1.2 million of that. And then various initiatives and programs that we are doing to help students ensure that they maintain the academic quality as well as mental health support as we are in this somewhat new environment of an educational model in COVID. So a lot of these are either online subscriptions that make resources better availability to students, or initiatives such as FLT mental health documentary that we're doing internally that is going to provide some better information for students as we move forward, at this point, hopefully out of COVID. Any questions on the stimulus funding report?
Don, this is Jeff. Not so much a question as a comment. The first is, I want to thank you and express some appreciation for you laying out all of the stimulus money in a spreadsheet so that we can easily follow how much we received, how much we've spent, how much we've programmed to spend. This is at least for me, is the first really clear picture where I can really follow those various stimulus payments and where we've programmed them. So thank you for that. I'm not sure I quite follow how to take the information on that spreadsheet and integrate it into the budget, but that's another day. But I appreciate the spreadsheet. This paints a clear, concise picture that we could present to anybody, even if they didn't understand what all our stimulus sources were. And, we could, any of us now could explain where the money came from, how much it was, and where it's been programmed and spent. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is a work in progress document. It's a living document. I am working with cabinet and various members of the college community to make this more accurate and update it, because a lot of these, like I said, the ones in yellow are estimates, and we're working to better understand what those actual estimates may be with specific proposals that we get in. So this will be an ongoing report. And if anybody has any questions after the board meeting or at any point during any time they want to, ask a question on it, please feel free to reach out. And that ends my financial report at this time.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Ms. Ahern, facilities update.
Good evening. Adam, do you have mine or no?
Not, I can get it in a minute.
I got it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I thought you were going to do that. Let me share. Okay, everybody see that? Can everyone see that?
No.
All right, Adam, can you help me, please?
Yeah, yeah, give me a.
The light's on though, right? It's working.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The screen, the lights.
Yeah, it will come on.
Okay.
We're coming.
I'm sharing. Hold on.
Thank you. Oh, almost. That's not mine. So give me something I can talk to. There it is. Thank you.
There we go.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is give an update on nursing. Something's going on with my computer. And after we had met last, or I had presented last week, it was more, or I'm sorry, last month, it was more of the inside. But the outside now, when you're coming from D-Lot, you're getting a better feel for the main entrance and then obviously the roofing. So when you walk in on that lower roof, if you will, you'll be walking in, it'll be a very large open lobby area that will have an elevator, and that will bring you down into the third floor, and then with access into the nursing. Next, please. This is looking on the roof line. So the slab on the left, if you will, that is the roof over the third floor extension where you'd be walking into the nursing suite and just keep going on the third floor. And then to the right is that atrium, is that entry lobby area that I talked about before. What's interesting, and we talked about this before, is the flex lab that we did get the grant for, and we're working on the design. But this roof, or this slab that you're seeing on the left of the photo, will in fact be the floor, and then we will extend, we'll take that wall down, and that will be the new flex lab, just to kind of give you a feel of the relationship. Of course, as I've always said, if we gotten the grant about 8-9 months ago, this all could have been in the construction, but we're trying to phase it appropriately so we can get that done next summer. Next page, please. So as I talked about, we are, go down, I'm sorry, go up a little bit, Adam, I'm sorry. Thank you. The future nursing and science projects we've talked about, we do have the grant for the flex lab. We are also looking at the renovation for the third floor. There's a third floor lab that needs to be renovated adjacent to the new nursing suite, and that will be tied in with some of the sciences. And I've been working with Jonathan Kaiser. We're in good shape for steering committee, so I hope by the end of this month we'll start some programming for those spaces. Again, with the intent of getting construction documents out by the end of this year, and we would be building the summer of 2023. So there's still lots of activity associated with the science and nursing, which is great. The other one that I've talked about is the electrical infrastructure project. We were really pushing to try to get a lot of that work done this summer. But as we've talked about with long lead items, believe it or not, main transformers, which is included in this job, are between 40 and 50 weeks out for lead time. So with that being said, we will now be looking at getting them, ordering them, and then getting the work done for winter break of 2022, hopefully. We will get some work done this summer, but nothing, that's just moving some things mechanically. But that's what we're dealing with right now. So that's just a little crazy. And then lastly, I just wanted to share some of the self-performing projects my staff has been doing. Those that have been on campus have probably seen us around moving things and taping areas off. We did
moved student health into the new wellness center, which was a part of the nursing project. They're in there, they're unpacking as we speak. The adult literacy is moving into the old student health area, and that happened today. So in the next couple of weeks, they'll get themselves organized. And we've also done some lighting projects. We are continually trying to bring in LED lighting, reducing energy, and actually providing better light. And that are two areas on the third floor. One is IT area, and the other is Bill Peeler's area, which is printing and that type of thing. So that'll really be good for them. We're taking advantage of major mechanical equipment during maintenance. And then we've had many, many office moves. And I'm winking at Deborah and I'm winking at Lewis because we have worked very hard to move people around. But, you know, we don't just move them. We try to get in, paint, patch, clean, and then, of course, computers and phones. So we've been busy. We still are not where we need to be. We have another couple of weeks before we get full population back. So for those on campus, please be patient and work around all the little construction tapes that you see around. So that's my update for facilities. Any questions?
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks again, Adam.
Yeah, Adam, we have one resolution.
Yeah, so the resolution is for a bid renewal for sprinkler and backflow inspection. This is awarded to SRI Fire Sprinkler out of Albany. This is the third of 4 possible renewals for a total annual cost of $4,000.
Any questions? Okay, we got some informational items.
Yeah, so the informational items, again, these are some bid items. The first one is bid acceptance for professional printing services awarded to Phoenix Graphics out of Rochester. They were the low responsive bidder. Term is for 1 year with possibility of 4 additional years. Total annual cost of $10,043. The second item is a bid renewal for mail courier services between the main campus, all the campus centers, and a viticulture center. It's awarded to Aramet Corporation out of Rochester. This is the first of 2 possible renewals for a total annual cost of $28,000. And then the last item is just an operating funds transfer, and this is just some internal transfers within the budgets. Informational only, no changes to the budget.
Any questions? Thank you, Adam, and could I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Jeff. So move.
Jeff and Barb, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You?
Thank you, Trustee Cass. And I know we say approximately 6:30 for our full board meeting, so let's adjourn until 6:20. We'll see everyone in 18 minutes. We'll come back at 6:20. Thank you.
There you go. Well, that was fun.
Hello again, folks. Welcome back. Took a short break there, and again, formally welcome everyone to the Finger Lakes Community College Board of Trustees January 5th, 2022 meeting. For those that are just joining us, Happy New Year to everyone. We'll officially call the meeting to order and give you, our public and our community, the opportunity to participate. We value the input from members of our college community, and we encourage your participation. We ask that you identify yourself before speaking, and we were happy to provide you up to 5 minutes for each individual to share your comments or thoughts. Would anyone like to do so right now? If you are on mute, and because this is WebEx, you can hit *6 and that'll take yourself off of mute. Anyone at all that like to share their thoughts? Okay, seeing nor hearing none, we'll move on. And we'll move on to the two sets of consent items, the December 1st committee as well as board meeting minutes. And with the board's permission, we'll take the 4 resolutions that are also referenced in the consent agenda. So please, a motion for all 5 of these and a second. Please identify yourself if you would. A motion, please.
George, I'll move.
Thank you.
This is Joan, I'll second.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Joan. Comments or questions? Penny, anything that we're missing at all?
No, that's good.
Great.
You're good on that.
Final questions or comments? Hearing or seeing none? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried. Thank you. 10-0. Old business. This item right here, which is the salary adjustment and contract with our president, Rob Nye, was included in our December board meeting, but we included it in the consent agenda, and we wanted to call that out here so that we'd have an opportunity just to have a very brief discussion. The president's salary called for a cost of living adjustment. We stuck to that, and that was the salary adjustment for Dr. Nye. And unanimously, we approved this amongst the board, as well as the feedback from the trustees, which were quite supportive, as well as very positive with regard to Dr. Nye's performance. Dr. Nye, we'd like to give you the opportunity to say a word or two.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. I just wanted to make sure we had a discussion after last time that we needed to at least have a public comment on this topic on the contract. For a history's sake, in the previous contract 2 years ago, it said that there would be no pay raise for the president until the union contracts were signed. They were signed, and the COVID hit, and there was nothing done. Last year, there was a resolution to give me COLA, and I asked it simply that the contract be adjusted to give me the same COLA on an annual basis automatically during the remainder of the contract that the rest of Management Confidential gets, and that's all it does. And we just wanted to make sure there was public comment on that since it was passed with no discussion at the previous board meeting. That's it. And I thank the board for their efforts and patience and confidence.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nye. And I would also add that you, along with the cabinet and the confidential members, also took a 5% salary decrease during our most difficult and deep times during COVID. And for that, we're grateful as well for stepping up and leading in the manner in which you did in that particular fashion. So on behalf of all the trustees, thank you very much. And again, we appreciate all you do to certainly lift us up. And it's been quite a journey, and we're looking forward to certainly a very prosperous and exciting 2022. I do have some new business with regard. I'll loop right into the chair's report, but before I do, any new business from the trustees to bring in front of the board, in front of this meeting? Couple items. Opening days is coming up on Wednesday, the 19th of January, and we're excited. Dr. and I, you and your team have put together quite a lineup, and I know Trustee Mihalik can certainly speak to this probably better than all of us as trustees. With President Bastin from Rockland Community College. I know, Donnie, you've had a chance to interact and work with him, and we're excited to hear his message, and really looking forward to having them with us as we launch into opening days. So, Trustee Mihalik, I just thought I'd give you a quick opportunity to say a word since you've had some interaction with the Rockland president.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Dr. Bastian is not only very well respected on a national level for many issues surrounding what we're going to be talking about, but he is a lively character. It would be difficult to not pay attention to Michael. He is and has an excellent way of getting his point across, making it seem doable, some of the big things, and he has a nice way of breaking things down into manageable steps. I highly recommend tuning in. He is always a pleasure to listen to.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Nye, I know that he calls upon you as you do him in terms of sharing information as peers, as you do with other college presidents. And you may, in fact, you included that in your report, but maybe a word from you with regard to our Rockland president who's going to join us.
Michael is a gifted orator and a wonderful president. And what we're looking for is how are we creating greater equity and opportunity for our students? And I think it'll be a wonderful session, and it's going to be wonderful because the way he does it, he does not sit and pontificate for an hour and ask for questions. It's interactive, and there's 3 breakouts that will be included so that there's a way for people to discuss things, and then he'll have a special session afterwards for people that want to continue. But I would like to thank the efforts of our cabinet, in particular, Jonathan Kaiser and his team, and Sim Covington for the work that has to be done to make opening days work. It's a lot of work, and really appreciative of the efforts for everyone. And we say everybody in cabinet, when you look around, Michelle and her folks are working on various items that need to be accomplished and recognizing people, food for the event. It really is another one of those team efforts, like was mentioned by Carol about where we're at in terms of enrollment and everything. So thank you to everyone for that work for that, and looking forward to a great opening days.
Thank you, Dr. Nye. And as Trustee Donna mentioned, I also would encourage, just as she suggested, that all of you, if you can find time in your day, to join us between 9 and 11 on Wednesday, the 19th of January. Second item is our retreat on Friday, February 18th. We're asking all of you as trustees to please share with me, if you would, by Friday, the 21st of January, 2 weeks from this Friday, any ideas or subject matters that you'd like us to take on and consider and address in our kind of full, well, it's a half day plus retreat on Friday the 18th. So if you would, please feel free to send that along. I, along with the other members of leadership, will take those thoughts and ideas and with Dr. Nye craft an agenda. But we'd like to hear from you. And please, if you would, between now and the 21st of January. That's all I had from a chair's report, but I would welcome Dr. Nye and your president's report. Rob?
Well, thank you. 2.5 things out of the report. First, we're really excited that we have a new grant writer, and it's been a long time, and it's extremely important for our college to be able to have the grant capabilities that we've just brought on. And my thanks to the search team and the leadership of Lewis for the selection of our new grant writer, and I'd like to ask Lewis to provide a little introduction of our new grant writer.
Thanks, Dr. Nye. I'll just be very brief. So The new Director of Grants is Mary Beth Phillips. Today is her third day. So she's getting acclimated very quickly. Her most notable grant experience that I think will be important for this group and for the college is she worked on the grant team at Geneva, the Geneva School District. That was really, going back a couple years, a real grant powerhouse. And she has really deep connections working with that school district as well as all the other school districts in the Finger Lakes. In fact, and this is a preview for some of my cabinet colleagues that'll be in a meeting on Friday. We do have an upcoming grant that will involve local school districts, and she's already setting things in place. So we're really excited. No one is more happy than me that she's here. Believe me, I'm very, very pleased, and I think she's going to be very successful. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. The second topic off of my report, before I get to the half topic, was just to let you know and highlight the second meeting we had with Gallo, the same national reps and local reps, was held shortly before the Christmas holiday. I think it went pretty well, and it is an opportunity to create a partnership and then apprenticeships with Gallo, and we're looking forward to that still in the areas of their production facility and also from the viticulture program. So our mechanical technical programs at Victor, and then also the viticulture program, and looking forward to continuing the development of that. Some great work by Louis and Jonathan during the session, and looking forward to seeing where that goes. The half topic I wanted to talk about is only a half topic because I briefly highlighted how impressed I was with the operations in the fall, but the challenges we were going to be facing in the spring. And that was described to you in the beginning of, about the first week of December. And since that time, a lot of things have changed. And Governor Hochul sent mandates out on Friday, December 31st, that require mandatory boosters for eligible individuals, which we're still working with what that means 5 or 6 months from previous full vaccination, or 2 months for Johnson & Johnson. And also mandatory baseline testing of all face-to-face students or students that are going to have activities on our campus. It's disappointing that it took that amount of time because we were asking for help several weeks before. But we have those mandates, and there's a lot of people that are on this WebEx right now, and a lot of others behind the scenes that are working through what that's going to mean. We don't know exactly what it means completely yet, but we're working through it. We'll keep you up to date. It's going to be challenging, I believe. And Deborah, you can correct me. We're going to be tracking at least 5 different types of students. 6 types of students that we're going to have to track during this time period. And if we thought it was hard in the fall, it's going to be harder this time in many ways. But I said something today I really want to highlight today when we had our Emergency Operations Center meeting, and I'm really impressed and proud of the efforts of our people, and that we've gone from kind of a crisis mode to a continuing operations mode. And people have handled the stress of these changes very well thus far, and I'm really proud of it. We'll figure it out. I can tell you that I think conceptually we're ahead of our peers. I felt that way today talking to 5 of my peers, all the community colleges west of us in this state. And we've thought about things more thoroughly than any of they have at this point in time and working through the challenges. So we'll keep you up to date. I don't know if Deborah or Michelle want to comment on any particulars, but I'll give you that opportunity if you'd like. Okay.
I think you covered it. Thanks.
Going once, going twice, sold. But the last thing I'd like to highlight, not part of the report, but Governor Hochul sent out her vision today, which we got a pre-read 2 days ago in the SUNY President's meeting. But she is going to be taking a different track in the future of what things are going to look like. And for the board members, I'll send this out to you. But it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because the focus, in my opinion, is a little bit more on the 4 years in terms of the vitality of the state of New York than it is the 2 years. But she does believe that we should be leaning into the strengths of each of the different parts of the system, from the doctoral granting institutions to the community colleges, to be able to grow enrollment through developing institutional specialization. The intent meaning that we would grow enrollment in those areas at our college that we are doing well, that would serve the vitality of the state. What is hopeful is streamlining the application for financial aid processes, which is something that's extremely difficult for our students to be able to navigate, and the amount of work that staff have to do. So anything they can do with that can help. She'd like to simplify and improve the SUNY transfer process, and that would be a Herculean effort based on attempts in the past to be able to create a seamless transfer under a previous chancellor. But any efforts there are greatly appreciated. Jobs as an accelerator to building bridges between work and education. She is very big on workforce development initiatives. And we do need, this state needs the ability to create a very strong apprenticeship type program and activity that links, and George, you know this very well, that links education with work, that provide opportunities for students to have sustainable wages and still be able to go to school and be able to afford that. If we're going to develop the economy of the state, that's critical. Also, to become a national leader in equity. Fortunately, we have a national leader, or a local regional leader that's helping us tremendously, as you know and heard tonight, to identify and remove obstacles to hold students back, funding for minority serving institutions, and becoming a leader in adult learning opportunities, which we already are. And when you have 34% of our students that are already traditional adult learners, which is a lot more than a lot of other colleges, we can help be one of those leaders in those areas. And I think that we do that also because of a lot of the great initiatives that have gone on, such as really leaning into online learning, remote learning, and our workforce development, and the linkage from non-credit to credit activities. I think it's very good. But those are the major aspects that Governor Hochul put out today. What will be interesting and is important to us is what's that connection to what she put into words for vision for the budget for this year. And that remains to be seen. And Chairman Martin, that completes my report.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nye. And I would also say that on behalf of the trustees, if we can be of assistance, I certainly noticed in Governor Hochul's previous comments the connection that she's made, in particular with community colleges and the vitality of the economic value that community colleges bring in a sustaining way. So the fact that she acknowledges but also calls that out certainly is a significant step from maybe some previous words we've heard from Albany. So good for her in that regard. But we also stand ready to assist in any way that we can to help get the message out. So thanks for your work, and others that are certainly making those connections for us. Any questions of Dr. Nye? Appreciate your report. Thank you, Rob. Moving to the committee and liaison reports, we'll start with our student trustee and ask Trustee Partial if you might share with us, Sophie.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to start out looking at some of the highlights and then back at the semester and then looking forward. I was talking with Jenny and she gave me some of the stats for like the events and the clubs that have been going on. And over the fall semester, there was a record number of events that they held for the school, at the school for the students to attend since COVID. And 50% of those events were held by Student Corp or the Student Activities Committee, which was really, really big. There was also a record number of students that came to these events. And there was a really big increase in the number of clubs that were run out of student life. During COVID, there were 7 active clubs, and now they're up to 19, and there's even a bunch of new ones, which is really cool. Another thing I want to touch on is timely care, which Dr. Kaiser was talking about earlier. Student Corp has made timely care one of their SMART goals, and it's really taken off. They had a few events to promote it specifically. There was one there you could make your own mental health kit that was really popular. I walked by and they like sold out of all their stuff and had to like come up with a new event for the second day because they did so well, which is awesome. So they're hoping to see an increase in students using timely care. Overall, it was a really successful semester in student involvement, and in the spring, Student Corp is hoping to continue promoting mental health through timely care. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. That was a very thorough report, and thanks for your written report as well. Any questions of Sophie? Appreciate it. Thanks again. Trustee Essels, our Enterprise Risk and Audit Committee. Any updates?
No specific updates, just a reminder that there'll be a joint meeting of, I think, the Finance Committee and the Risk Management Committee on January 31st, at which time we expect that Bonadil will be presenting their audit. So everybody's invited.
Great. Always a fun meeting. Thank you. Board development. Trustees Mihalik or Abraham, either one of you?
Not much to report, but I do have one question. Is anyone going to the ACCT National Conference in Washington in September or in February? Okay, I was just curious.
There had been some discussion at the fall meeting. I know that one of my colleagues approached Dr. Nye and said, we're expecting to see FLCC at the Legislative Summit, but I don't think we have made any particular plans for sending anyone. It is, I don't have the date in front of me, I apologize. But if anyone is interested in going, or if you think it's important enough, I did go for the first time last year. I thought it was very valuable. We could talk about that. I don't know if the leadership team has made any decisions about that.
We haven't, Donna, and this would be a trip up to Capitol Hill, if I recall.
Yes, NYCCT will be hosting a New York State strategy session there, and then as part of the ACCT events, and then yes, each of the colleges have a breakout plan for who they're going to speak to on Capitol Hill, or how they want to approach their legislators.
So why don't you and I talk offline? I'll be happy to connect with you tomorrow or Friday if that's okay for you.
Sure.
Great.
Yep,
great.
That'd be
Thank you. Great. I'll do that.
Thank you, Sandra, for bringing that up.
FLCC Association. Trustee Hamlin. Barb, if you give us an update.
Yes, a quick little one. As you probably all know, Stephanie Carpentier is retiring. She's been an outstanding executive director, and it's going to be big shoes to fill, I think. And I'd like to have, if the trustees agree, that in the minutes a note of gratitude to her. That's agreeable, Steve?
Yeah, fine idea, Barb. Thanks for suggesting that. Let's make that formal. And Penny, if you could phrase that and maybe pass that over to Barb for her editing, and then send it to all of us after Barb's edited it.
Okay, that's fine. I will do that, Barb.
Okay. Carol Urbatus has formed a search committee. It has very ambitious timeline, as it will be hard to fill her seat. And the Child Care Center is full, but as state funding was cut several years ago, it's still challenged to fill its financial fundraising gap. And the bookstore continues under its new management. And the AVI Food Services has proposed some changes in their contract, which the association board is reviewing those changes. And that's the end.
Great.
Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions of Barb? Thank you for that report. We appreciate it. Trustee Geis, it's a new year, and I bet there's an event you might want to talk to us about.
Well, we're still planning on Vintners and Valentine. Hopefully by March, we will be on a good trend again as far as COVID. Hopefully we'll peak and we'll be in good shape. I'm sure we'll talk about some alternatives if we're not. Louis, do you have anything to add, and how are ticket sales going? Can people still get a ticket?
Yes, I could give you a quick update on tickets. So we have a total of 84 tickets sold for in-person. And so we have 66 tickets left for in-person to meet our 150 person cap. So ticket sales we're very optimistic that we'll have a COVID full room.
Louis, I'm just curious, do you have many online?
Only 2 virtual tickets have been sold, so not many.
Those would be mine.
Okay.
Oh, you're not. Have you thought of renaming it, possibly Vintners and Shamrocks?
Up a couple times. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate that. Donna, back to you. Anything else for NYCCT that you might want to add?
Sorry, having trouble with my mute button there. Just that NYCCT is planning to have a strategic planning session at the legislative breakfast in Washington. There will be an educational module coming up later this month. I know that I'm not clear on exactly the topic of it. I know one of the upcoming topics for education modules is going to be labor negotiations. And that sounds like it's going to be an interesting module. I know the community colleges do their labor negotiations slightly differently. But a schedule will be coming out shortly, and we have an executive committee meeting tomorrow morning, so I'll have more details.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again. Thanks for staying on top of that for us. Student Corps, Trustee Cushman.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. As we heard from Jonathan and Trustee Parshall, they had quite a focus on the timely care events, and they were able to help register over 300 students in their efforts. So they've done an outstanding job there. They actually recognized the Student Veterans the Student Veterans Organization actually recognized the Student Corps for the efforts on behalf of veterans, which I thought was pretty neat. It's paying it back. The diversity efforts among this group seems really strong. We're seeing, a lot of events that really have diversity and inclusion built right into them, which is wonderful. It's a very definitely a result of Dr. Covington's efforts, I think, as well. But also the students are completely bought in and excited about it. There was some discussion about the Guided Pathways focus group, getting input from the students on their first year experience, which I know I reinforced, as did several of the faculty, and just encouraged them to participate and be authentic, and that I just reinforced that the board is extremely supportive of student success. So. But overall, the energy is really strong in this group. It's really something to see. I'm not. It's not just energy there. There's results. They're getting things done. So it's just a real joy. I hope they can keep it up. I think they bring a tremendous amount of value to the college.
Thank you. I actually have a question for you. Certainly, Guided Pathways and Student Success has come up for those of us that are connected to the Aspen Project Institute as well as Middle States. So I know you and Trustee Geis have been kind of representing us, but there is some upcoming meetings, some upcoming continuation of progress there.
I'm not sure that there's anything specific upcoming on the guided pathways. Dr. Joan, do you recall anything?
No, after we finished with the book group, I think it was just kind of on hold. I haven't heard that they're moving, they may be moving forward on some of the committees. I am not sure. I have not heard. And our Aspen meeting, we are having in the
Next week? 2 weeks.
20th?
January 20th, and it's January 20th.
January 20th, okay.
So Jonathan, you want to provide just a quick update?
Sure. There's not a ton of information that flows directly from the Guided Pathways book group in terms of guided pathways, but the guided pathways will be the subject of our keynote speaker for opening days. There's a breakout session with Dr. Bastian as well. We are continuing work on our integrated first year experience. That is also part of our student experience committee, which is part of our governance work. We're the last of the guided pathways conferences or forums is in April of this year. So what we'll end up doing is preparing for that. And what we're really trying to accomplish with that meeting is to institutionalize this work. What does this work look like when it's not supported by a structured project through SUNY? And I actually think this is where we're going to get a lot of really meaningful work, because then we get to fit the project and ideas according to what our interests and needs are as a campus. We've been somewhat structured around guided pathways, around how SUNY's unfolding this 2.5-year project. I think this provides an opportunity for us to say, okay, what does it really mean for us at Finger Lakes? How are we really going to change and focus on student success? And I think one of the outcomes that at least I see happening from this work is that we're all focused on student success. And it's not about guided pathways as a project, but as a framework for resources to organize our people, our budgets, and our teams for supporting students in terms of completion. And I think that's what the sort of the end game is for the SUNY Guided Pathways project. But I'm excited to see how it's going to morph.
Great, thank you for that update. I appreciate it. That completes our committee reports, and we do have 2 executive sessions here. I do need to read into the minutes the actual reference to both of these executive sessions 1 and 2. We will be returning back to a public portion of the meeting following these. Executive session 1 to discuss matters regarding collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, New York Public Officers Law, Article 7, Section 105, letter E as in Edward. Executive session 2 to discuss matters regarding the employment history of a particular person or matters leading to the employment, Section 105, letter F as in Frank. Please, a motion and a second to enter into these 2 executive sessions, please.
Barb Hamlin, I so move.
Thank you, Barb.
George, I second.
Thank you, George. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll come out of this. Please click your link for executive sessions. Thank you.
Oh no, it's not it.
to do it.
Nice, that was easy.
Well, that one was in the calendar.
Oh, right, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Give folks a quick minute here.
Why is that not doing
There we go.
We'll wait just 1 minute here. So I count 7 right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Rich. Okay. Okay, we do have a quorum. Any other business to bring in front of the Board of Trustees today, January 5th? Hearing or seeing none, please a motion to adjourn our meeting and a second.
George, I'll
Thank you, George, and a second.
This is Jeff. I'll second it.
Thank you all. Have a pleasant January. We'll see you in April. We'll see you in February. Have a nice night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.
7:25.
Yeah, not bad.
2 executive sessions. Not bad at all.